I want to share a little bit of background about today's presentation. It's really funny because I've done a lot of research in my life, but this one I was a bit apprehensive about. And I think the reasoning for that is because it involves me. It's odd analyzing yourself. It's one thing to do research about other people, but yourself kind of breaks the rules. Now, I'm sure you all sign anthropology like this. I like to sign anthropology like this. The other sign that's related to Europeans and their view of anthropology, but I prefer my sign and to match my view. But we need to break the standard of who studies anthropology. You can see me. I have a female body. I'm a lesbian. I'm deaf. There's many different parts involved in my intersectionality. And I published an article with some other people. This was my first time having anything published. Well, an official article anyway. I've done a chapter in a book before, and people say, oh, that's the same thing as an article. No, it's not. This is official. It's published. It's an actual article. It's the next level. I'm very thankful for Ruth Morgan. You might be wondering who Ruth Morgan is. Well, Ruth's actually my partner. And Ruth has been very involved with my research with Black deaf people, Black hearing lesbians, and analyzing different people's experiences with me thus far. So yeah, Ruth actually co-authored this article and this piece with me. Intersectionality and that concept, we hear about that often within deaf studies. And it was interesting for me to see this concept pop up years ago, many years ago, 1989. And then I found another article from 1991 and how it carried on from there. I encourage anyone who's doing research on intersectionality to make sure that you recognize the primary focus, which is race. You may be wondering the reason why I say this. Well, intersectionality, what is it based on? Your first identity. It's your first primary identity, typically race. And then typically people's second identity are their sex or sexism, and then so on and so forth. So when you're talking about intersectionality, make sure that you prioritize what you're talking about. My experience as a deaf person is different from all of yours. We may all be deaf, but they're different. For example, when I was on the last leg of my trip here to Rochester, I realized that the first part of my flight, I felt comfortable. I was surrounded by people that looked like me. No one stared at me. There were other Black people, other people of color, Indian people, what have you. And I was comfortable. Now, during the second leg of my trip, I walked on that plane, and that was a weird experience for me. I felt really nervous. Now, why should I feel nervous? I felt that it wasn't a safe space for me. And this was based on things that I've learned from my friends and family. So that's what separates me and my family from other deaf people, is the color of our skin. So that's the reason why I encourage people to do that. I really emphasize that race or origin is first. And then where my research lies is after that. Other types of oppression, people's experiences. So we're all deaf here. It's a unique experience. And also I'm from South Africa. So I had different rights, different access, interpreters, language. South African Sign Language is a little bit different. I already had an argument over that. My experience is primarily with ASL. So I don't feel oppressed when it comes to using ASL and having access to sign language. So I have that as a privilege. I can have a staff interpreter come work with me. But we already discussed that. The next one I'd like to discuss is being queer or gay and homophobia. The three of us involved in this piece have all experienced homophobia. Having a negative view toward gay, lesbian, and queer people. And we decided we have to take advantage of this moment of all of us in this space together. This concept is from some old research by a woman named Judith Butler. Her focus was on gender studies. She was a scholar that, again, focused her studies on gender. And I recognize gender in ASL and in general, there's gender markings in language. Now, I'm not talking about each word on a lexical level. No, I mean gender in how we manipulate, how we communicate, how we express ourselves, whether it be through spoken language or sign language. Sometimes when we learn from a specific person, we model how they sign. And we think, hey, I like that sign. I'd like to do it that way. And sometimes you don't even realize it when you pick up new things. You unconsciously pick up these nuances. Or perhaps you pick up errors that way as well. Well, this becomes stylized repetition. That's what Judith Butler said in her research. And that stylized repetition actually becomes performativity over time. Now, that word performativity, I don't mean performance as in a theater. We do perform. It may not be for an audience or for money, not that type of performance, but we do perform, whether it be subconsciously or consciously. And when we pick up these nuances in other people's language, we add it to our own repertoire. I've done a lot of research on this because my background is actually in language anthropology. I've done a bit of research on Irish Sign Language, which can be signed one of two ways. There's a lot of dispute about that. Between Northern Ireland, they typically sign it like this, whereas the Republic of Ireland signs it this way. I worked with a research assistant, one of my past professors, and we studied their sign language over in Ireland and realized that there's a lot of gendered sign. There's a lot of female signs and masculine signs, and this stems from having those two separate Catholic schools where boys and girls were separated. So women sign like this, and men sign like this. They already have that training rooted in them. They have these gender markings in their sign. Another branch of this is the study of disability-focused theory and queer theory. And I'm very appreciative of this research coming before what I'm studying now. It's something called Crip theory. Crip theory in itself talks about defiance and going against the heteronormative world.
And I felt that I could apply this lens to my own research with gender and sign language. I felt that Crip theory was fitting because it's resistance. And that's what I'm talking about, resistance with these gender markings in sign language. People trying to fit this heteronormativity and their expectations. People have these expectations of what signs should look like for different genders. An example of this is masculinity, or being masculine. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have femininity, or being feminine. This is a linear way of thinking about this, and that's where the struggle lies. We also have gender-neutral individuals, gender non-conforming folks. So we need to build more than this simple linear approach. We need more axes coming off. So I encourage you all to do this. That's the work that we have to do. Crip theory follows a few different principles. The last one is what I'd like to touch on today. And that's us thinking about how we apply our signs to our performance. How can we break these norms? Well, it takes practice in our everyday lives. This was my work prior to meeting Dr. Morgan. I've already done quite a bit of research on female-bodied, masculine-centered signers. I've been at this a long time, and finally it's going to be published, maybe next year, in the Oxford Handbook. This focuses on language and sexuality. I am seriously honored to be involved in this project. I worked with many scholars, many professionals over many years. This chapter gives us the opportunity to talk about gender non-conforming signs and gender markings. Some people have female bodies and masculine signs. Sometimes masculine, female-bodied signers may call themselves a tomboy. Some people sign it like this, tomboy. Well, me and my research partners all agreed that when you sign tomboy, as you can see, your elbow is up. Same thing for masculine. And again, I'm not talking about focusing on the word. I mean the overall picture. Don't get stuck on the lexicon. Look at the overall sign. And you'll see the elbow is up. You have that space under the arm. So we performed a test. And we said, tell me a story about the most feminine experience you've had. And during that time, the signers lowered their elbow. So then we said, okay, now tell us about the most masculine experience you've had. And the elbows went up. Very large signing space. The facial expressions also. We saw this in people's mouths and their brows. And that is what I'm talking about. Those are the gender markings. While I was gathering this research with specific gender markings, I identified them as tomboy. Well, some people would say, wait, I'm a lesbian, or I'm not a lesbian, which made me realize we had to make that separation and make subgroups. These specific research participants do identify as lesbian or butch. But I do see parallels among signers who have a more tomboy style. Okay, so why is this important? Stigma. Stigma has a strong relationship with this topic. Now, when I say stigma, I'm not talking about sexuality. Going back to what Butler said, sexuality and gender are very intertwined. It's hard to separate these concepts at times, but for the sake of this research, they are separate. Shifting back to my research, we found comparisons through this work and then the work of my co-workers, Ruth Morgan and John Meletse. This is their work. I didn't know that this was being published at the same time I was doing my research, which was focused on deaf queer lit in 2017. I didn't know that meanwhile this was being studied in 2017 as well by these two. John, you can see on the screen here, it's an image of him. This is his sign name. And John's signing style is very large, very theatrical. It's not passive. So the two of them, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, researched camp. It's from gay culture. Camp is a style. It's hyper-femininity, over the top. So they did research on John's expression. Someone finally wrote about gender and sexuality and how they cross over, which is wonderful. Other research I want to mention prior to this is about the gay identity. Gay identity markings in sign language. Another individual, Shane Blau, as you can see pictured on this slide here, he researched this topic prior, as well as another gentleman named Anthony Michaels. He's a designer in Britain. But they talk about gay sign variation, or GSV for short. And that's very important work to include in our research as well. There's been a lot of work done in the Philippines, and I would love to add research to those studies. Two other people, David and Cruz, they actually talk about gay sign language as well in the Philippines. And I'd like to add to that research, so maybe you all could check it out. Again, when doing this work, I wasn't sure exactly how to self-analyze. I didn't expect that to come up. It wasn't until Dr. Ruth Morgan said, we should write all of this down. We need to document this. And at the same time, we can pull from the other two deaf South African researchers about their experiences as Black, deaf, gay men. We really wanted to unpack this. We thought that was a good method to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. Kristen Harmon, another presenter, she talked about how in research many deaf people are afraid of using their English, especially in the process of writing. We wanted to create a safe space for them. We told them what we wanted them to do, they would sign for us, and that was it. That's the important part. We wanted people to use their natural sign, and then we could think about why we notice these patterns and make these comparisons. So Ruth would sign, then John would sign, and then I would, and it was this roundabout. We'd each take a turn, and it would all come together. I took my research approach with Crip theory and sign and masculinity, along with their research, which focused on gay camp signing and applied that to gay sign variation. So overall, this was such a wonderful experience to see those two things come together. Now I'd like to talk about the title of this piece. The title is Trousers 2, Dress 1. That's the title of our poem. We were talking about what we wanted to be our title, and at first we didn't want to have a title. We decided to just have it blank. But then we got thinking, what if people that watch our poem reference it as, oh yeah, you know the one with the two women and the one man? So we decided we had to add a little bit of control. We can't just fully put it up to the people's interpretation and see how it goes. This isn't like a science experiment. So Deline, the one in the dreads you can see on the slide here, said, well, how about we throw someone's sex and the physical body out the window and we just focus on clothing? And all of us are kind of like, what? So we were thinking pants and then trousers. Then we had it. 2 trousers, 1 dress. This played with gender norms as well as dress code. It really came together for the three of us as a great title. And then after that, the ball really got rolling. We wanted to make this united poem, the three of us. And we didn't want to just each have a line. It seemed too separate. We really wanted it to be one piece. Now, the concept of a Renga, this is a poem that comes from multiple sources that comes together into one. It's not separate pieces. It really focuses on cohesion. And we already knew that we wanted to talk about our identities and our shared identities, what we've experienced, our intersectionality. My family's from East Africa, and we moved here to the US where I was born. So I'm a first generation immigrant, but second generation for being a college student. I have experienced oppression for my identity. I have a female body. There's certain expectations for me and what I should do. That's pretty common for people who are children of immigrants. Especially for people of color. There's this weight that we carry, high expectations from our parents, and we need to follow this behavior that they expect from us. But I went my own way. You can see me now, I have a bow tie on. There I didn't wear a bow tie. I wasn't sure if that was safe for me to wear a bow tie. I would wear very feminine clothing there. And then one day someone said, you should wear a tie. And I said, okay. So that was a new experience for me. It was awkward. I didn't know how to be myself and dress the way that I wanted to. And the other 2 people in this project have experienced their own types of homophobia, especially John. In his behaviors, his gestures, how he walks. He's very clearly a gay man. You can see this in his gait. But he refuses to hide that. He continues to be his authentic self and rebel. Now, Deline has struggled as well. Deline is more masculine, has dreads. But just like John, Daleen refuses to change who she is. So when the three of us were talking, we decided that we needed to have this collaborative poem between the three of us and talk about our lives and how we've grown over time being a gay deaf person, whether it be in South Africa or, in my case, in America. All in all, in my research and their research, which focused on gay signing, and again, my non-masculine signing, when we recorded these clips, we didn't expect to analyze our language on this deep of a level. We appreciated the experience, but that was not our expectation. As you can see at the top here, this is related to my prior research. Remember I had mentioned earlier with feminine signing having the outsides of your hands out? That's also a marking of gender on that feminine to masculine spectrum. Typically with feminine signing, the palms are facing out, the elbows are more at a neutral level. And it's the same thing with gay identity and gay sign variation. Those have markings as well with a flick of the wrist, palms facing out. When I sign, it's more like this. And the facial expression is more with a furrowed brow, pursed lips. Facial expression is like our tone of voice, our intonation. High voice has the brows up, low voice has a furrowed brow. For camp signing, you'll see John signs a very specific way. Typically, the wrist movements are exaggerated. There's a lot of movement. The chest is out. Gay men don't have breasts, but they do protrude their chest, whereas when I sign, my breasts are pulled in. That's another example of a gender marking. Now it's time to wrap up, right? Okay. Perfect. I've noticed that the Rengas, they've given me a path to express my experience, my intersectionality. Resistance is a celebration, liberation. Again, we didn't plan to do this. It just happened after a lot of discussion. This is what came to fruition. And when I realized that our intersectionalities and our conversations, it wasn't just like, oh, that's a cute thing, it's an identity thing. No, it really is rooted from struggle, from oppression. Thank you for watching.